Last video, we painted this super realistic worn German gray. This was to mimic the box art for this Tamiya 38T. In this video, we're going to focus on finishing up some of the details so we can start the dust and rust effects. I started with this mix of matte black and kind of a khaki. I wanted to make it look more like a dark rubber for the road wheels here, since they were made of rubber. Working in a gray color palette, it's really important to differentiate these different color grays. As you can see there, it really works. And next, we're going to move on to using the same color to paint the pry bar and some of the machine gun barrels. And don't worry, we'll weather these later so they won't look exactly like the rubber on the road wheels. Next, we're going to use some rub and buff. And in hindsight, I probably should have done this step last because it kept rubbing off and I had to reapply it. But I'm basically just picking out all the areas where the paint would have been kind of rubbed off by the natural wear and tear of the tracks moving around the sprocket and rubbing up against the road wheels. Also, the cleats that come in contact with the ground would have been rubbed away as well. Now it's just a matter of cleaning up all the rub and buff that got all over the place. It kind of flakes when you apply it, so I used some mineral spirits to clean all of that up. And then it was on to rusting the tracks. Now I used this standard rust effect from MIG, and I built this up over 5 or 6 coats to really give this the look I was going for. I've never tried this before. This is a new product. I lost a lot of footage here trying to apply it, but I basically just used this for texture, but we'll get back to that later. I wanted to next make some scratches and chips. I put the texture paint on first because I didn't want to chip where I knew I wasn't going to need to, but I wanted to make sure the decals and some of the other areas had some chips in them to make them look more incorporated in the model. And then once I did that, I decided to kind of go over all the other surfaces that crew members or stowage would have been rubbing up against the paint and chipping it away. So this is a great tip to get those decals to look a little bit more realistic. And again, the box art shows a lot of scratches here, so that's what I did. So now to blend the texture paint in with the rest of the kind of dust effects, I'm going back to my old trusty Aqualine by Wilder. And this is kind of an acrylic dust effect that will never dry completely, or will dry, but when you wet it, it will be able to be manipulated again. So I'm just kind of using this to blend in the texture paint and make streaks and tie this all together. This is a great place to start any weathering effects, is where the road wheels are going to be. So I kind of practiced here before I went to the rest of the model. That way you can kind of work out your order of operations. So we did the light first, and now we're going to go in with the greenish brown, and that kind of is showing the darker mud that hasn't quite dried yet. If you look at any pictures of mud on vehicles, there's typically the thicker, more creviced mud is wetter still, and the streaks and the outskirts of the piles starts to dry first. So that's what I'm mimicking here. This is a little bit more dust that's on the box art, but I really liked this look, and I had a new product, so that's what I did. This here is just some dust, real thin aqualine on the road wheels. I had a lot of trouble with the road wheels. I did these steps here, and it looked really flat. I actually reached out to Night Shift Models. If you don't follow him, I'll put a link in the description below. He helped me out kind of figuring out what to do with this, and we'll do that at the end. But here we're just moving on to kind of dusting the rest of the model. This is a little non-traditional. Usually I would pin wash a model, but I really wanted this ring of dust around all these rivets, so I opted not to do a pin wash on the entire model, and we're going to spot pin wash it after. But this is a little different than what I would normally do, which is kind of why I wanted to build this model and follow the box art. And you'll kind of see once this dries, it's a little fainter. But I really wanted all these rivets to have dust all around them. So it's a different technique. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Now I'm just going back over with just a pencil with some graphite, and I'm pulling out all those corners to really make them pop. Now I had a bit of a disaster here. I use MIG products. I love MIG products. That is the worst product. That brown, it just doesn't work for anything. It covers all streaky and weird, so I threw it away, and I opted for this Citadel Gorther Brown for the wooden block here, and then I just painted some faux grain into it. And then I just used this AK streaking grime to build up a few layers to really give it some detail, and I thought it looked great. Now onto the rust. I know this is a little counterintuitive. We're starting with gray, light gray, but light gray and rust go really good together, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I started using lighter and lighter grays and khaki colors to sponge chip all over this. I eventually ended up with like almost a white, and I'm just giving it texture. Then I went over the edges where it wouldn't be maybe so hot, and I used some black, and I sponged that over as well. And then we came back with the standard rust effect from MIG. And now you can see after one coat, 2 coats, it really starts to look like a rusty exhaust. It's an awesome little trick. Now it's just a matter of adding the fuel jerry cans. And now this is where I mentioned I was talking with Night Shift about what to do here. And this is originally all I was going to do for pulling out the detail. I have to weather those as well, forgot to do that. But he said to go over everything with another wash. Even though it would kind of tone down the dust effects, I think you can see here how flat the road wheels look. And we're gonna, once I put everything together, I kind of realized that, so I'm gonna make a oil wash right here with kind of the similar color palette. That's why I added some greens and some yellows. I didn't want it to look like a black or dark brown wash, so I'm kind of testing here what kind of looks right, and we're just gonna pop that in there, and you can see almost immediately that it really pulls that detail out. So we sacrificed a little bit of that dusty effect, and I suppose I could have gone back over and redid some of it, but I was really happy with how this looked just like this. And closer to the ground, I think that's okay. So now we're just weathering some of those other details, and that's gonna be it for this build after we do the exhaust. Can't forget that. And once that's done, then that's going to be it for this build. So here you can see the box art we started with, and then it transitions to what we ended up with. And I'm really happy with that. And I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'll see what we do in the next video. Maybe something different? I think it's going to be something different. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.